Hi, welcome back, students. Today we're going to be jumping back to Europe in the Middle Ages. We've covered Asia quite well. We talked about feudal Japan and Tang and Song China. We talked about the Mongols. So we've covered history from around the year 6 or 700 all the way into the 1300s with the Mongols. So now we're going to come back to Europe and see what exactly has been happening here in Western Europe since the fall of the Roman Empire. So around the year 6 or 700 we're going to be looking at now. Remember, the Roman Empire fell in 476 AD. So our aim is going to be, was Charlemagne the father of Europe? Charlemagne, Charles the Great. So Charlemagne means Charles the Great. He was king of the Franks, and he creates an empire in Europe at a time when really, many historians call this the Dark Ages of Europe. I would highly recommend, if you're interested in sort of the age of kings and intrigue and political intrigue and things like that, to kind of look at on your own the history of the Franks, especially around this time. So many interesting characters. So we're going to be focusing on Charlemagne, but really the entire Frankish family tree here is pretty interesting. Charlemagne's grandfather was a man known as Charles Martel, also known as Charles the Hammer. Charlemagne's father was Pepin the Short, because he was, short. And Charlemagne had two sons, two sort of famous sons. Louis the Pious, who would succeed Charlemagne, and Pepin the Hunchback, named after his father Pepin, but with a different physical trait. So Charlemagne creates this empire in Europe, and for the most part, he creates an empire where there wasn't one. So we'll take a look at exactly what that means for us. So let's take a look at this map. So here we have Europe in the Middle Ages. Quite different from the way it looked under the Roman Empire. So what's a difference that jumps out at you right away? So if you were thinking that it is divided and not unified, you are correct. You can see here all the different Germanic kingdoms that popped up. So, for example, the kingdom of the Franks, which would eventually become Charlemagne's kingdom. The Burgundians, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths. Ostrogoth means Eastern Goth, and Visigoth means Western Goth. So the Goths straight through southern Europe. You have the Vandals down here in North Africa. So you can see that there's a lot of disunity in Europe at this time. So Charlemagne's legacy. What he did, very simply, was unite these cultures that had sort of fallen apart and become disjointed after the fall of the Roman Empire. He also helped spread learning throughout his empire. He's commonly known as a light during the Dark Ages because of this. His empire becomes known as the Holy Roman Empire because of his devotion to Roman Catholicism. So Pope Leo crowns him and names him the first Holy Roman Emperor. So Charlemagne's empire becomes known as the Holy Roman Empire. And we could see the Holy Roman Empire here in this map at its greatest extent. So it comes to kind of swallow up some of these other kingdoms that we saw in the earlier map. So there's nothing really Roman about Charlemagne's empire. we'll look at a quote later by Voltaire and kind of analyze, that phrase, Holy Roman Empire. There's going to be a video linked to this video in your assignments tab. Make sure you check that out. So here's that quote by Voltaire I was talking about. The Holy Roman Empire is neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. Voltaire was a famous, maybe one of the most famous satirists. He did satire, meaning he was willing to poke fun at institutions, at religion and politics, to prove a point socially. So what do you think Voltaire is trying to say here about the Holy Roman Empire? That it's neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. So to Voltaire, these Frankish people who were now in the Holy Roman Empire were, for lack of a better term, barbarians. Not holy people. They were certainly not Roman. It was the descendants the descendants of Charlemagne who had conquered the Roman Empire, barbarian tribes. And it's not an empire, especially when we're comparing it to, the great Roman Empire that once existed. This is sort of a large kingdom in Voltaire's view. So neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, according to Voltaire. So that's all we have for today. This is a fairly short slideshow. Be sure to check out the video that was linked and the documents for today's lesson about the Frankish kingdoms. And again, I encourage you to do a little research on your own about this really fascinating period in history. Okay, bye-bye.